The Tuesday, or
what was it, Friday?
Wednesday morning before we left Galveston. We went on the
Yeah, and
golf tour.
Saturday.
And there's like a
awful.
down
Saturday
city
was
area,
really
which
bad.
looks almost like New Orleans Mardi Gras.
I have no idea. I had it really weird. But then you went to the website because I saw one. No joke. Because then you might sink into it and but I don't think it's widespread. Yeah, it's just like a simple,
Like a regular mattress.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I'll call the meeting to order. Could we please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And welcome to the July 8th business meeting of the Milford Board of Education. Can we have a roll call for attendance, Ms. Griffin, please?
Megan Doyle.
Here.
Scott Furmender.
Present.
Tracy Irby. Tom Kova.
Here.
Lauren Mallor.
Here.
Una Petrowski.
Here.
Christina Pree.
Here.
Mike Smith.
Here.
Cindy Wolf Boynton.
Ms. Boynton is excused.
And Susan Glennon.
Here.
9 members present.
Thank you. Can make sure the record shows that Ms. Muller is remote tonight. Do we have anybody here in the audience who would like to make public comment this evening? Seeing none, I'll dispense with public comment statement, move on to the chair's report. So, board members, on tonight's agenda, you'll see the year in review, which fulfills a governance process that the superintendent will provide an annual report to the Board of Ed and the public. So that's what the purpose of that. The presentation on our current preschool programming will provide background to the board for discussions that will begin in the fall about facilities. At our September 9th meeting, we expect to have a presentation on the facilities condition report. A reminder that we begin our summer break after this meeting, and our next regular business meeting will not be until August 26th, when we'll have an update on summer curriculum work and professional learning. That's also the week that school starts back up, and our work will begin again in earnest at that point. We have a lot to do this fall. And lastly, there were some corrections to the minutes, so the minutes will be pulled from the consent agenda for review as new business. Do I see any objections from the board to adding that to the agenda as item 8 and then renumbering board comment and adjournment? I see no objections. Okay, then we will do that instead of doing them as a consent agenda. And that's it. So we'll turn the meeting over to Dr. Kutaya for her superintendent's report.
Thank you, Ms. Glennon. Thank you, members of the Board of Education. Good to see you, and happy summer to all. So I'd just like to add a couple comments to your prelude, Ms. Glennon, in that most certainly this is a report to the Board of Education as well as the public on the highlights of a fantastic school year, but also say that it marries with all the other reports that are provided throughout the year, all the instructional highlights, all the regular reports such as transportation, safety and security. So all of those actually, if you weave them together with this, is over-encompassing report to the board and the public as well. So keep those items in mind from this previous school year as we go through these highlights this evening. So I like to think of the year in review as a celebration of the great work that has been accomplished by our students, our staff members, the partnership we have in our families, and the work that is supported by, of course, this Board of Education as well as the city officials of Milford. So there are two ways to look at this report, more of the scope of and horizontal perspective of everything that's happening across the district, but also a vertical perspective on the depth of work that is occurring. So when it comes to the large scope, it's just a reminder that on physical space-wise, we are responsible for a little over 1 million square feet of buildings, 179 acres of grounds. We count 491 classrooms that are constantly being cleaned and kept up, and where our great work occurs every single day. And over the summer, we actually use more than 1,000 gallons of floor wax. Just a little fun fact. And that happens every summer, stripping and re-waxing. And actually, one of the nicest things walking through buildings before we open our doors to young people, as central office leaders do, the thing that actually strikes you is how shiny the floors are, because it's probably the only time that occurs. But our maintenance and custodial staff do an incredible job over the summer, as you see two of our folks highlighted here. This next slide is only a snippet, a teeny tiny list of 356 projects that were completed last summer. And you know Mr. Bradbury and his team that if they can get 357 projects or 358, they would fit it in. But there are also projects that continue throughout the year that were not scheduled, as you know, when you are maintaining facilities and grounds. So this is not meant to be a comprehensive list, but just a few highlights for yourself. These next couple slides provide you with some pictures of some of the projects that have been completed in 23-24. If you've been down to Foreign, they have a whole new entry area to the fields. It's really a beautiful area. Jonathan Law, track and the amenities down there also have been renovated. And we continue to enhance all of our front entrances when it comes to physical facility space, but also security. With Pumpkin Delight completion, we'll have hardened vestibules in all of our schools. Our children give us great feedback on the new playgrounds that have been installed. That has been a renovation project that has been on a cycle of replacement and repair, only because playgrounds are incredibly expensive. So we do have a cycle for those replacements. And you'll see there, Pumpkin looking very different today, but that's what it looked like back in the summer. We are grateful to start the school year off with convocation. We hold that every year at Jonathan Law. Board of Education members are invited every year. Ms. Griffin, the date of the one in the summer is August 28th. She will get it before we leave here today, but this was convocation. All of our certified staff members are invited. We kick off with greetings from Ms. Glennon. The mayor addresses the crowd. I give a talk about a focus and a theme for the year. We celebrate those teachers who have hit milestones in 10, 25 years of service to our district. And we also welcome our brand new teachers. And speaking of brand new teachers, here are the 53 that we onboarded and attended the new teacher academy. So we hold a Milford Teachers Academy that as we refer to it as the MTA, every August. New teachers spend 3 days with us, onboarding everywhere from procedures, protocols, particularly safety, curriculum, instruction, assessment. We also include participation in One Day for Day One, which is done in partnership with MEF. And it's just a great way to welcome great new team members to our district. And that is done annually. You see here some happy faces on first day, including Miss Rizzo, who was a first-year principal, overly excited about being the principal at JFK. This year we transported about 4,100 students to and from school. You'll see the stats there broken down to 62 buses and vans, 107 bus runs, and 972 bus stops done regularly. Just trying to give you the scope and the width of the work that we do here in Milford. Also, almost hitting 700,000 meals served in our schools for this past school year. Ms. Faustich and her team lead an incredible program where we test out new items. To the degree possible, we source locally some of our produce. And we were able to have the great benefit of providing free breakfast to all of our students this year, which was not funded locally, but at the state level. Unfortunately, that will no longer be the case this upcoming school year. In the area of safety and security, we installed and tested a new system, which is referred to as the Alertus system. This gives us a single point of messaging and basically takes over every district-owned device that allows us to push messages out so that we can get the fastest possible communication across the district in the event of an emergency. We even participated, a couple of us here at Central Office, over spring break in an emergency drill in partnership with the Milford Police Department, testing out some of our protocols, and we have confirmed that Alertus really is a very efficient and fast-paced communication system. So we will continue training on that in the upcoming year. In the area of communication, we continued with sending out more than 9,300, the upcoming news and events to more than 9,300 families and staff members. We had our MPS podcast where we developed and pushed out 25 episodes this year. We have about 1,800 followers on Twitter and 596 followers on Instagram. I think you'll see a renewed effort in communication in the upcoming year with a new communications coordinator, who you will get to meet next month. We'll have her at our next board meeting. In the area of instructional technology, this is an ongoing every year effort. We replaced 1,400 Chromebooks just in this year alone. We are on a regular replacement cycle for our young people, as well as replacing laptops and Chromebooks for staff members. We replaced 100 desktop computers. Yes, desktop still does exist in the system. There are certain apps that we use and software that is best used on a desktop. And we also were able to install 150 Usonic boards at the high school level. So now, reassuredly, we could say, I'm looking at Mr. Giancola because I want to tell me the day I can say this out loud, and here it is. There are ViewSonic boards in every single one of our 491 classroom spaces. So that is the most up-to-date, cutting-edge technology we can have. Some of you may have remembered the days that you supported a budget that had interactive whiteboards. Those were like the infant stage of the ViewSonic. Some of us may have gone to school in a more infant stage of a ViewSonic, like an overhead projector and such not, but maybe we've come a long way, right? In the area of talent management and development, we have launched this year with the support of this board, with an additional staff member there, and really taking a look at making this newly renovated mission statement come alive in our system. There's a renewed emphasis on supporting the recruitment process, the attraction process to bring in with intention the absolute best talent into our school district. And as we continue to enact this mission, we look forward to Ms. Capazin and her team creating intentional efforts around recruiting teachers of color and really getting feedback from our staff about what support they need so that we keep our teachers for a very long time, which is not a problem, but always something to continue to focus on. As we've talked about many times, we launched our esports clubs this year with great enthusiasm by our students. It has primarily, albeit we have club advisors, our students have taken agency. They're owning the clubs. And that is something, one of our goals in the vision of the learner, where we really want students to have agency around their own learning, and this is one of those areas. We look forward to making these official teams next year. We are navigating lots of procedures right now on how do you launch a new team, what are the rules in the esports world, how are they the same, so we are looking to CIAC for some guidance. So we look forward to this time next year giving you an update on how this club has turned into an official competitive sport for Milford Public Schools. We engaged our community this year in a community conversation that feels like ages ago, actually. But we came around the same table and opened it up to our community to talk about what do we want for our young people in Milford. We also did a series of parent universities. We're learning a lot of lessons with parent universities. While there is less in-person attendance, we are looking at next year to look at how are other ways that parents can access this content in a more on-demand way. So we are finding the content of Parent University being relevant, but lessons learned around parents, adults, and how they can access content, I think are something that will turn into 24-25 changes. One great event that occurred at the end of the school year was the Parent University we held on summer reading. Actually, that was very well attended. Maybe it was because we gave a lot of freebies away. It was a great night where moms, dads, and little people walked away with ideas on how to sustain reading across the summer. And we did that in partnership with the Milford Public Library. And we can't do our work without the multitude of partners we have out there. This is just a small representation of the many people, organizations, groups that we get to work with throughout the year to make great things happen for our young people, whether it's inside the walls of our school buildings or throughout the community. We're grateful for the partnership we have with J. Rowe, who hosts a Smooth Jazz for Scholars event every year. And his benefit concert raised more than $90,000 for Milfordville School Music Department across the years. So we are grateful for Jay's partnership. We also this year engaged in a community fair where we brought together multiple agencies across the city. Held it right here in Parsons. Again, many lessons learned for that event, but we brought agencies that provided free civics-based services to our families so that families could walk through in a job fair type of way to get information, talk face-to-face with individuals to get more information on the services provided here in our great city. And in the world of Board of Education, we onboarded new board members this year and worked very closely in updating 25 policies. In the world of teaching and learning, we kicked off the summer with HQI Live Season 4. In fact, in 2 days, we are kicking off Season 5. We're excited. Last year, we had about 150 teachers. I think last count I got was 105.
106.
106, okay, we had somebody register, so we have 106 teachers coming in over the summer to simply get better at getting better. It is a opportunity for our teachers to lead their own learning. So this is teachers teaching in front of teachers live with our very own kiddos. So it is a homegrown, it's all about teachers interacting with one another and learning from one another, exchanging practice, ideas and practice. So glad to be kicking off Season 5 here in Milford. And we do have visitors every year come from other towns. I forget who came from last year, but this upcoming week we have a team from Watertown joining us. So it's nice to also spread that opportunity to grow with partners across the state. Lots of opportunities for professional learning. You see some examples here in picture, particularly with a focus on intentional play. This is a cute little picture of the garden shop. It's a play scenario that was rolled out across the system. We are fully intentional play focused on our scenarios in preschool and kindergarten. Our teachers have asked us for additional training in some of the scenarios, so we'll be responding to that in this upcoming school year. But you see some of our kiddos there engaging in one of the scenarios where they actually planted flowers, and they had a garden shop, and they had a garden cart, and you got to fill out an order, and your order was fulfilled as a customer going to their garden shop. So it's one of the cutest, sweetest things. In the area of curriculum, we are committed to the curriculum revision cycle. You will see here on the next few slides the curriculum work being updated and implemented in the areas that are enumerated. So I will not read all of those to you, but in the areas of STEM and humanities, and then as they are listed here for visual, performing arts, and wellness and school counseling. So this board supports through your budget process, and we roll out expanding choices in reading and writing for our young people. For multiple years now, you have supported budgetarily the refresh of classroom libraries. While these are just a couple of titles we chose to highlight, there are many titles that we are infusing through our classrooms so that our students can make choice around what they're reading and writing about. And we are also being very intentional that our literature is representative of our student body so that our young people can find themselves in what they're reading and writing about. So we've been doing that with great intention, and we appreciate this board's support in that endeavor. So in the areas of academics, we continue with some of the areas of focus. So we continued with the rollout of a new math program. We implemented an additional CNA course. We added our STEM-based learning to the STEM-based learning units and expanded them. You'll see the expanded classroom libraries there. Purchasing and use of robots, The expansion of musical instruments is included here. So these are just some highlights from some of the investments that you supported. And of course, the outcomes in at least one format here is our advanced placement performance. You will see 140 students were named advanced placement scholars from the fall of 2023. 67 of them scoring 3 or better, 29 scoring, I have it right in front of me, average score 3.5 or better, so being named AP Scholars with Honors, and then 44 AP Scholars with Distinction scoring 3.5 or higher. So we, our young people at the high school level continue to have records of excellence when it comes to advanced placement. And just as a reminder, we have an open door for advanced placement enrollment. We don't limit it, we don't do a grade point average prerequisite. We allow students to access AP classes and let them try. We just want our students to give that content and those experiences a try. We also had 6 national merit commended scholars named. You'll see those students here, both at foreign and law. And for the second year, we engaged with Electrify. It's a music company. Last year we did Electrify Your Strings. This year we focused on Electrify Your Choir. And it's just bringing industry experts to engage with our young people to, bring that performance that to a higher level, but also to engage in motivation and inspiration to further deepen their study of music. So it's an incredibly engaging experience for our young people. I am certain we will have these young people as adults one day. There's got to be some of them that will be hearkening back to these experiences, inspiring them to continue their journey in music, and maybe even become very talented, notorious musicians. We hope they can talk about their experience in Milford Public Schools one day. And speaking of music, we were, for the 4th year in a row, named one of the best communities for music education in the state of Connecticut. There is the mayor there identifying a proclamation for us. So it was very nice that the mayor's office recognized our school district in that way. We continued our tradition of holding an art show. This is the 2nd year that we chose to make it a pre-K-12 art show. In previous years, if you remember, it used to be like one elementary goes up, comes down, middle goes up, comes down. So this way we just, upstairs is elementary, downstairs is middle and high, and we have special nights that different levels could visit. So it's really nice, if you haven't been to this art show, it really demonstrates the progression of our children's learning across 13 years, or 14 in some cases. It demonstrates the curriculum and how that progresses, and the learning and the developmental nature of visual arts representation. So it's really a great night enjoyed by families. One of the highlights for our world language changes is La Maestra Loca. You've heard us talk so much about her. I think we should just name her as part of staff here, Mr. Altieri. She is coming back next year for some more training. It is revolutionizing. I think you heard some teachers talk to you during the world language highlight, instructional highlight, about how it has, even after many, many years of teaching, it has revitalized them and revolutionized how they approach world language acquisition. And I think that's a great example how a year in review has to capture some of those instructional highlights. Like that night really speaks to the work being done in world language. We continue our work with Model UN. We had great experience here at Parsons, where all of our high schools came and took on real world issues that they grappled with. And a nice little asterisk here is that we actually had some of our graduating students who were part of Model UN in previous years come and facilitate the current Model UN, which was, that's a beautiful like little circle of life there, right? Leaving us, coming back. And in fact, our staff, faculty, advisors talked about increasing that opportunity to the degree possible, bringing more graduates back to help facilitate. So it's a sort of a student-to-student facilitation. We continue with STEM experiences across our district, in particular elementary. So again and again and again, thank you to this board for believing in elementary STEM classrooms. We see our young people really excited about the world of science and engineering and technology. We had the Energy Showcase. Thank you to all the Board of Ed members who were in attendance and who asked really hard questions of our fourth graders on their thinking on how we can save energy in our city. We celebrated Teacher, a Power, and a Parent of the Year this year, or Parents of the Year. Very proud of the contributions that all of our staff members and parents made into our system. I'm looking forward to the day that we can display this with a new winner at the middle school track meet. But yes, the Penguins take it again. Harborside takes the track meet. And this is something that our young people really look forward to. And it's a little bit of a highlight in the world of wellness and physical fitness. And just nice tradition that we have, highlighting the culture that we have here in our Milford Public Schools. And all of our middle schoolers, to a certain degree, participate, whether willingly or not, they're there having lots of fun. And of course, our middle school stepping up ceremonies, each held in a different way. If you've attended more than one middle school celebration, you realize that it really captures the spirit and the culture of that school. So here are just some pictures from each one celebrating moving on 8th graders. And of course, the graduating classes of the Academy, Law and Foreign featured here in these photos. The Academy had its largest graduating class in a long time of about 20 students. They're not all pictured here, but this was on a day that I'm not sure we thought we were going to make it through graduation, right? With the very dark clouds and the balloons, waving in the air. So we were glad to celebrate our young people here at the Academy, and then of course Law and Foreign. And just a couple of feel-good moments this year. We continue to engage in the fire poster contest in partnership with the fire department. We always have great winners, and it's a visit to the fire department, and there's a lot of great pride in that. And sometimes you'll even see posters published on billboards, etc. So it's a very proud moment. And just a nice way to celebrate our very own Jim Riccitelli. Our staff all contributed, of course, on a volunteer basis to purchasing a bench in honor of his work here in the city. So this is the day we tricked Jim to come down to central office, and we all walked down, and we told him, don't take your coat off, you're not staying to work, and there are no cupcakes today. So we walked down to the duck pond and just celebrated Jim a little bit more. So the installation, of course, occurred much later than his retirement. So just a little feel-good opportunities for our staff. And then what's becoming now the annual Great Boat Race. I wanted to include this here because I think, first of all, it happened in June. It was the end of the year, and it really brought almost all of our schools together. If you were there at the marina, there were so many families and so many of our kids and so many of our staff members and lots of our administrators, and everyone was in like dressed down gear, ready to jump in the water. And there was this spirit of pride of our school system, and people, our kids put the boats together, our staff were going to race it, and there was school pride, there was district pride. So I just wanted to include that because I feel like it was just a great culmination to a school year that really highlights the good things that are happening in our system, down to new traditions, old traditions, and people coming together. Even though they were rooting for their own boat, there was just a lot of rooting going on. And happy to share that East Shore Middle School won this one. I think that they're going to be eager to defend their title. So if you don't know about this race, our young people put these boats together over the course of a couple of 3 months, and they this year used cardboard and water bottles, empty water, plastic bottles. So I'd be scared about getting into that boat, but we have very brave, with life jackets on, staff members that do it. And then what's coming up this summer, as I mentioned, season 5, fingers crossed, we're in the final stretch for completing the Pumpkin Delight Elementary project, hoping to open those doors in full renovation to our young people and staff and families in August, at the end of August. We have summer school launching, lots of building and ground projects as supported by you in our city. We are neck deep in the facility conditions assessment study, more to come on that. Fingers crossed, first meeting of September, and lots and lots and lots and lots of curriculum work, right, Ms. Autieri?
There you got it.
Lots of curriculum work, so. Those are the highlights of the year, and I have the date for the first day of school for students. Here we are, August 28th. So that means convocation is the 27th, yes. So happy to take any questions or comments from board members based on the school year we've just completed.
Questions, comments from the board? Ms. Mahler, anything? I just have an observation. I had noted that I believe this last legislative session, they codified a requirement that there be play-based learning
Yes.
K-5, correct? So that
We
was
were a couple of
exciting.
years ahead of that.
Yes. But it'll be interesting to hear over time how you're bringing this into the upper grades as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for the report.
Thank you. And if I may now turn things over to Ms. Autieri and Ms. Stewart to provide you with a preschool update.
Good evening, Ms. Glenn and members of the board. Tonight we have the opportunity to share with you a program overview of all of our various preschool opportunities and districts. I'm grateful to be joined by my colleagues, Ms. Stewart and Ms. McGuire this evening to provide the overview to you. And as we go through the presentation this evening, there's 4 large bucket areas that we're going to cover with you. The first one being specifically around our organization of programming. The second, to give you a little bit of an overview on staffing. There's subtle differences between each of the programs in terms of the staffing model. So we've included that information within the presentation for you all this evening. We'll also talk about funding sources for the programs, including tuition. And then end with some topics regarding future considerations. So we do have a legislative update, which is relatively new and is in the cooking phase right now, so we want to share that with you, but then also talk about some of our future planning work as we go into 2024-25 and beyond. So as we kick into the presentation this evening, one of the things that we want to talk about is to begin with an overview of the variety of programs that Milford Public Schools offers for our youngest learners. So I'm going to kick it over to Ms. Stewart and Ms. McGuire to launch us into that.
Thank you. So I'm going to talk about integrated and self-contained preschool. So integrated is where that we have students with disabilities and students without disabilities in a classroom together, and we try to keep it 50%. Right now we have sites at JFK, Pumpkin, and Live Oaks for our integrated classrooms. We also have 2 self-contained classrooms at Live Oaks. To kind of compare the difference, self-contained classes are for our students who have a more severe weaknesses, usually in the area of academics, social, language, and behavior, so they need that really small setting. But our goal is always to give them opportunities to expand and grow into that integrated classroom, maybe for a snippet of time or maybe half day. It all depends on their needs. So the students are receiving the preschool curriculum, but they also have goals and objectives per their IEP for a student that has that disability. And then sometimes they also get related services by a speech therapist, or let's say a OT or PT for fine motor or gross motor. And those can be serviced in the classroom or pulled out depending on their needs. There's also in our integrated classroom, we have 8 teachers who instruct our students in the integrated classroom, and there's a paraprofessional in each of those classes. The self-contained classrooms look a little different. There is one special education teacher, but there can be more than one para depending on the student's needs at that time. So it can ebb and flow during the year because we always have students coming in so that their needs can change, and sometimes we decrease support based on their needs. And the last thing I did want to say is our class sizes range usually a minimum of 6, and we can go up to 15. We try to keep it lower than 15, around that 12, 13 mark. Our 4-year-old classes usually hover in September, October, already around 11 or 12 students, but our 3-year-old classes usually start about 5 or 6, and they increase as the year goes on.
Ms. Stewart, can I
Yes.
pause you for a minute?
Of course.
So there's one teacher in each classroom, even though you said there are 8. There's
Correct.
just one teacher in each room.
Correct.
On the integrated side
Yes.
and the self-contained, right?
Correct.
And then there is a paraprofessional in each integrated program.
Yes, there are.
And can you speak about the role of the typical peer? Because it's not just placement through IEPs, right? So you'll have, you quickly said 50%, but I'm not sure that they know what that means. So could you just talk about the makeup of an integrated preschool for a minute?
Sure. So our students make up of typical students is our role model for our students with disabilities. So we want to have role models for our students with disabilities to really produce more language and get more communication skills, social skills, and really work on those academics. It's really working together, and when students have a role model, they usually level up to that. So we try to make it where it's 50-50, and the state of Connecticut does recommend that it's 50-50 in a class. We don't want a class, an integrated class, with say 80% special education students and 20% typical role models. We really want to make that even.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'll talk to you about our Ready to Learn preschool classrooms. Our Ready to Learn preschool classrooms are funded by a state grant, which is called the School Readiness Grant. And it's a grant that was designed with the intention to provide high quality early education to our families. Our program spaces are available for children ages 3 through 5 who are not yet eligible for kindergarten. As part of our grant requirements, 60% of our families have to be at or below the current state median income levels. It is a full-time program. We operate 5 days per week from 7:30 to 5:30 p.m. We have 3 sites: Live Oaks, Orange Avenue, and Pumpkin Delight. Each classroom has a certified teacher, and there can be up to 3 ready-to-learn assistants in the classroom. We have an AM shift and a PM shift. We operate 49 weeks a year, including the summer months, and we engage in an inquiry-based curriculum. You saw that through the photo that Dr. Kataya presented with our garden scenario, and we are accredited by the National Association of the Education of the Young Child. We used to call it NIAC. We were corrected by them. They now refer to themselves as a NACI, so it's kind of a learning curve for us that used to say NIAC.
NACI.
Interesting.
So I also had the opportunity to talk to you about our programs at Foreign and at Law. At Foreign, our focus is on beginning kindergarten readiness skills. Our high school students who are enrolled in child development courses have the opportunity to really step in the role of teacher. So they go inside the classroom and they work on some of the lesson planning with the certified teacher. They also have built great relationships with the students. The students really look forward to seeing their high school mentor, and you can just feel the enthusiasm when the high schooler walks in and starts to work alongside a child. And some of our high schoolers that are with us during the school year are also helping us now during the summer session, so they carry over, so it's nice to see that carry over. The program at Foreign operates 5 days per week from 8 o'clock till 12:30 p.m. The program at Jonathan Law operates 2 days per week from 7:20 to 9:20, and both programs follow our Milford Public Schools academic calendar.
And then, as you know, we have a brand new preschool opportunity this year that's relative to the new legislation around kindergarten. Obviously, you know that the kindergarten age requirement changed, and we actually put students through a process this year of going through a request for a waiver, and there was a screening portion that was included with that. One of the things that, as we went through and we were going through and administering the screening process, we began to think about, and thanks to obviously the support from Dr. Katai and thinking this through with us, an opportunity for our students that did not meet the waiver requirements. And one of those was the new preschool opportunity that's in place for the 24-25 school year. And it's in response to the students that are in that particular date range from September 1st through December 31st. And we still utilize the same funding process as we do for the Ready to Learn program through the sliding fee scale, but we've also offered a discounted fee this year for families that have committed to the program. Still follows the Milford Public Schools school calendar and is located at the Pumpkin Delight Elementary School. And families did go through a pre-enrollment process where they submitted an intent to participate, and that was reviewed. So I'm going to kick it to Jen and T to talk about enrollment for our variety of our programs.
So for Ready to Learn, in December, interested families complete a pre-enrollment application. The enrollment each year is based on the number of available seats at our 3 sites at Live Oaks, Orange Avenue, and Pumpkin Delight. This past school year, we had 84 students enrolled in our Ready to Learn.
So our enrollment process for preschool is ongoing. We don't have a deadline, so families can call in September and say they would like their child screened. The screening process means we have a group of staff, so it's a special education teacher, a speech therapist, like a school psychologist, come together and they do like a play-based observation of the student to really understand their skills in the area of pre-academics, communication, social, behavior, and gross and fine motor. So after that happens, the team comes together, they create a report, and then from there, they share it with the parents. And 2 things can happen. One, the report comes out and says there are no deficiencies and your child is typical and can be a role model and they can enroll and be part of the integrated classroom. There's also, like, let's say there are some deficiencies and the team wants to go further, do further evaluations, they can go to PPT 1. So there's kind of 2 avenues for students. There's also the birth to 3 student. So a birth to 3 student is a student that already has, is already identified with special education needs and is gonna come to the public school for the first time at the age of 3. So the birth to 3 partners with the public school, and we hold PPT 1. And at that meeting, the birth to 3 shares the information with the school team, and that's, at that point, we can do 2 things. One, we can decide right there that the student continues to qualify for special education services and will receive services in a public school setting. Or we may say, you know what, we want to do further evaluations to dive deeper into their skills, and then we go and do that play-based observation. And after that's done, we come back to PPT 2 to determine if the student qualifies for special education services in the public school setting. Questions on that? Because I know that can be very complicated. We're okay right now?
Everybody understand that?
And how are typical peers for the integrated selected?
So if they come, as long as they go through the screening process and they meet the criteria for being a typical role model, we then go through the registration and then we put them in a class that has an opening. And then, as you can see, we had 278 students enrolled last year in preschool, so our preschool numbers continue to grow each year.
And I will mention for Ready to Learn, Ms. McGuire had discussed that we have 84 students in the 23-24 school year. As of current date, we have 82 students for the 24-25 school year.
How many, is that 4 classes? I know it's in 3 sites, but is it 4 classrooms?
5.
5.
There's 1 at Pumpkin, 1 at Live Oaks, and 2 at Orange, I believe, Bill.
2 at Orange, 2 at Pumpkin Delight, and 1 at Live Oaks.
So as we talk about tuition of our programs,
So for Ready to Learn, for our school readiness grant funding, we use the state Office of Early Childhood Education sliding scale fee to determine families' annual tuition rate. So when they complete the pre-enrollment application and then we're accepting them into enrollment, our grant requires that we take their 1040 IRS tax form and we look at household size and we look at annual income and we use it with a sliding scale fee schedule to determine their annual tuition for the year.
So I'm just gonna kind of piggyback on what T said. So as if you are a typical role model, you pay a tuition based on what T said. There is, we also use the ECO sliding scale. If you are a student with special needs, you do not pay for tuition if you're in the integrated or in a self-contained classroom. The other thing I wanted to talk about is that we have an IDA grant 619, which is just for preschool. So it's a federal grant, and every year I have to file and we have to write goals, and we get approved every year. It's, as long as you fill it out and have your goals, and we get money that we use towards salaries or supplies to buy for our preschool students.
But it does not fund it fully.
It does not fund
Doesn't even
preschool
come
food.
close.
No, we don't
Okay.
fund
Just to be clear.
all of our salaries through this, through the grant at all. It's just a very small portion.
And then for foreign and for law, it's a cost per day rate for students. And then with our new preschool opportunity, we're following the same process we follow with Ready to Learn and Integrated, which is using the OEC sliding scale fee schedule, but we are applying a discount to that calculation.
So next we'll talk about transportation. So students with special education needs are required to receive specialized transportation, which is part of their IEP. So that means we transport our students to and from school if the parents would like that. As far as having a bus monitor on the bus, that does happen at times based if a student has medical needs, sometimes if a student has behavioral needs. It really depends on the makeup of the van. And then as far as the cost of transportation, so between our AM session and our PM session, it's called a midday run, and that's where on that small bus, there's only preschool students. But because in the AM and the PM, our preschool students can ride with K or first grade students on the bus, so we do combine our resources that way.
so as we go into the final portion of our presentation this evening, some of the things that we want to provide to you are future considerations. And one of these is a relatively new House bill that's through the legislation now, House Bill 5051, which is an act establishing what they're calling Early Start CT. And a little bit, we tried to summarize within the 16-page document on the bill, try to pull out some of the key things that are anticipated by school districts. As we mentioned, Early Start CT will take what was originally 3 different funding streams and combine them into one source. So that includes not only the school readiness that Ms. McGuire mentioned earlier, also child daycare and Head Start. There is now going to be a requirement for a community needs assessment to be performed, and part of this community needs assessment is an analysis and an overview of how recommendations for the distribution and allocation of seats across program schools will occur. It eliminates the family work requirements that were originally in the prior programs. And it aligns the qualified staff member requirement with the national framework. And what the qualified staff member requirement is it's work that informs that staff members who are certified go through a bachelor program or higher within early childhood to make sure that they do have a qualified certified staff member in each classroom. And then lastly, under the bill, some of the shifts to the funding language now include that at least 60% of the eligible children that participate in Early Start CT, whether it's enrolled in a child care center or a child care home, must be members of a family that is at or below 75% of the state median income. So that is probably some of the biggest shifts to the language that we've seen within this new bill. So as we talk about long-term planning, and I'll ask the team obviously to share anything specific as we go through. Ms. Stewart is constantly looking at programmatic needs and thinking about the location of our integrated and self-contained preschool programs and classrooms throughout the district. Ms. McGuire has done terrific work this year, as Dr. Kataya mentioned during her year in review update. Family engagement, community engagement continue to be major points of focus for us, especially in our early childhood programs, whether that's through the Sparkler app. We are also working alongside the Adult Ed program and some of their grant work to expand our outreach around family literacy. And obviously supporting professional learning. As Ms. McGuire mentioned, our NACI program requirements distinguish certain professional learning parameters that we need to meet with staff. And some of those areas include literacy, but then also cultural competency and formative assessment. And the formative assessment piece is one that we've already dug into much this year as part of our HQI work. So we are excited about some of the work that we're going to continue to do within our early childhood programs. T-Jen, anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah.
So we're happy to take any questions from board members.
Questions? Ms. Petrosky?
I have a couple of quick questions, I believe. On the new preschool opportunity, I was just wondering if you knew how many were participating in the new preschools of the 82?
No, that's the Ready to Learn.
Okay, so on the new preschool opportunity, how many do we have at the moment? I'm assuming there may be more.
So 23 families completed the pre-enrollment application. They're going through the registration process right now. And out of those 23 families, off the top of my head, about 10 have officially completed enrollment, and we're still reaching out to those other families.
Okay, so up to 23 is what we're thinking.
It may be a little less.
Okay, thank you. And then I had a question on the program costs and funding. Is the discount that is applied consistent, or is that also on a sliding scale?
The discount's only going to be applied for those families that enrolled in the new preschool opportunities. So we're taking the annual tuition rate from the OAC sliding scale and then taking a percentage off that calculation.
Okay, so it is a percentage off the sliding scale. Okay, thank you.
But the percentage is consistent. It's the same percent for
Right.
everybody, right?
Right.
Okay. And then my last question was on the new requirement or potential legislative impact of the family members having to be a family that is at or below 75% of the state median income. Do we have any idea what that might impact on our enrollment and or funding?
We have not, to this point, dug in to really understand the true gravity of the impact, or if it would be any impact. This is material that I think Ms. McGuire just went to a meeting with OEC pretty much 2 weeks ago now.
Okay,
So
so
it's all
it'll
relatively
require
new
some
information
time.
to us. And they're still, the State Department of Ed as well as OEC is still in the process of giving us supporting documentation and guidelines, so this is all still very preliminary.
okay, thank you.
We're a teeny tiny bit worried.
Yeah, I imagine.
We don't wanna sound the alarm because we don't know enough, but it, out of the blue, at a meeting, where there's announcing of changes, and we probably wouldn't fare well, depending what the criteria is on a community assessment and median incomes, and so we're just not sure yet, but I just don't have an easy feeling about it.
And there's also, as I mentioned, they're combining 3 funding streams now, so we don't know what impact. We have school readiness as a separate bucket that we apply for every year, and now with shifts to the funding streams, we don't know what that will mean for our particular district allocation when we go to submit our annual application each year.
And those former three funding streams will all be impacted by this new legislation
Correct.
saying you have to have the 75%
Yes.
of the median.
And that
Okay.
directly impacts 5 classrooms of ours.
Okay.
The school readiness grant is the Ready to Learn grant, right?
Correct.
That was it, thank you.
Mr. Smith, you had some questions?
Yeah, thank you. On the, hopefully relatively quick one, the foreign law learning centers, is the difference in the 5 days a week versus 2 days a week in the hours, is that driven by budget or interest from students or interest from parents? Just curious if we knew what the difference in the,
I think there are a couple of contributing factors.
Yeah.
One, interest of students, development of that program over at Law. The space at Law is significantly different. I don't know if you were at the Law and
No,
foreign
I didn't make
walkthroughs, but gratefully with your support and city support, we're going to equalize that. So we're anticipating with that renovated space that we will have an increase in student interest there, and we'll be able to expand days and hours. Our goal isn't necessarily to be exactly equal, but
Mhm.
to be first responsive to teenage students, and then so that we could be responsive to 3- and 4-year-old students.
so bringing law up to roughly what foreign is, right? All right, thank you.
So the intent is to try to you build the law program, from what I understand,
Yeah.
correct? Build it up. And
Right.
it's a win-win, I think, for the
Absolutely.
community. It's good for the students that are exploring those careers, and it's certainly a win for families that want a flexible, reasonably priced,
Yep, you pay per day.
part-time option for preschool, so.
And it's high quality, it's certified teacher. Our
Very-
teacher of the year is the one that teaches it at Ms. Pangu at Foreign. Our kids are super attentive, like you basically have 1-to-1 if you've ever been there. Like there's like 7 high schoolers and 6 preschoolers, and you know, there's just, it's a really great feel-good program, and our little people learn.
Yeah, it was, the closest we came was last year when we attended the workshop at Forenheim. My daughter went and like hung out with the high schoolers for a few hours while I was doing that, and it was really impressive, like everything they had there and the intention and excitement. It was cool.
And on the teenage side, we're really trying to spark interest in early childhood and teaching. So to bolster that career pathway is really important for the overall institution of education. So we, of course, want to support that.
Ms. Mahler, did you have questions?
I did, surprisingly. Ms. Petrosky actually touched on one of my initial questions that I had regarding the impact that the shift from 60% at or equal to the median income to 60% at or equal to 75% of the median income, how many families might that impact? How many might get bumped out, or what that change would be? But my understanding is that all of that is just one small part of the overall impact evaluation that is still being worked out right now to the overall programs, how well that's gonna work. So my actual question is more, maybe a little bit more, Ms. Glennon, for you, of given that this is the meeting where we are discussing preschool and we're discussing the early childhood programs and all of this, given this massive impact and change that this will likely have in different ways on this program, can we have a follow-up agenda item 2-3 months down the road to circle back to answering all of these questions around what that actual impact might be to our programs going forward, rather than waiting another year to come back to that? That's, knowing what that impact might be and what that might look like prior to next year's budget cycle would be really helpful. So I don't know how long any of that, I know you said you had a meeting in a couple of weeks, and I'm sure there's a lot of ongoing conversations all the time right now, but would love to have something more formally in this setting where we can circle back and get an update on what it looks like some of those impacts might be.
Sure, we can look at that.
Just for clarification, we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. We don't have a meeting in a couple of weeks, sorry.
Oh, sorry, sure.
For
But I know a
misspeaking.
lot of, that was only one of what I'm sure is a very large number of meetings, and this is probably a very time-consuming process of evaluating impact and getting more information from the state and everybody else.
It's a huge
on what
bill,
this
yeah,
will
it's a
look like.
very,
So we'd
very
like to
large
have a
bill.
chance to have this same conversation again when we do actually have the answers to what that will look like, since it sounds so significant. And I agree with you, Dr. Kataya, some of it sounds potentially a little bit worrisome, so I think it would be worth a follow-on conversation.
And as soon as we get information, we'll pass it along to the board. We won't wait for an official. So as we get information, I'm happy to share it with you all.
That would be great. Yeah, having it in both forms would be really helpful.
Other questions from board members? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. How many overall classrooms do we have for preschool?
So there's 8 integrated, 2 self-contained, so there's 10. New preschool opportunities, 11.
And then 5 RTL, so 16.
So 16. Going back to what you were saying about integrated, so any parent can come at any point and have their child evaluated to go into the integrated classroom, or need to be the self-contained. What stops parents from going into, like, there's a capacity, do you have to turn any parents away or children away who want to do the integrated program if they're if they're typical peers?
Last year we did not.
Okay. That's it.
Other questions? Let me just, I did have a couple others, let me see if I can find them, and they might have been answered. I had a question about how large the classes were, the Ready to Learn you have, so we have about 80 kids, 5 classes, so I can do the math. I think that was it. Ms. Doyle?
Which reminded me of the last question. Is the same true for Ready to Learn? Is there a capacity that we are holding at?
So because we're grant funded, it's based on the number of available seats we have in a given year. So if, for example, a family isn't accepted for enrollment, we instituted last year a pending open seats call list. So if somebody that said, yes, I want the opportunity, now decides I don't, we go in order with that pending open seats call list so that there is a potential, but we can't guarantee when that will happen.
Okay. So it's not like, what I'm hearing you say is that there's not, the program has a limitation of about 83, 84 students, about where they're based on how many students and what the granting is for the year.
And we try as best as we can to provide them with other opportunities in the district. So for example, if we say, oh, we're not accepting you for enrollment, I will share with them, we have the integrated, we have foreign, so I try to point families to other opportunities within the district, but also offer the pending open seats call list as well.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so certainly board members, I think as we start talking about facilities, this information will refer back to this information as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll give Ms. Autier a moment to get to his seat, because we'll be turning things over in the area of policy.
So we do have 4 policies up for a first read this evening. So we'll start and go right in the order of the board packet. The first one this evening is policy 4112.5/4212.5, and it is titled Security Check and Fingerprinting. So I will run through the suggested edits to the policy, and then obviously open it up for any questions or comments. So in the first paragraph, we are adding in Milford Public Schools, striking out board, and going with district to refer to Milford Public Schools from there on. Also in that paragraph, adding DCF, the acronym after Department of Children and Families. Going into the third paragraph, striking out board and leaving that as the district. Next paragraph down, from the legislative model policy, adding in updated in 2019. Again, similar to paragraph 3 and paragraph 5, we're striking out board and leaving that as district employees shall. The 7th paragraph down, striking out the school nurses and nurse practitioners, going through criminal history check pursuant to CGS 2917A. Next paragraph down, striking out effective July 1st, 2010, and adding in DCF child abuse and neglect registry check. And then the final paragraph is a new paragraph on page 1, and that is basically adding language in about a teacher for a non-credit adult class or adult ed activity that's not required to hold a certification, being exempt from the fingerprinting requirement. There are a couple changes to the legal reference section on page 2. Adding into Connecticut General Statute 10221D, adding Public Act 1851 and Public Act 1991, and then adding in the brand new CJIS security policy version 5.8 from June of 2019. And those are the suggested changes currently for policy 4112.5.
Questions, Ms. Petrowski?
So I have a couple of mostly edits, but
Sure.
Also another question. So in that first paragraph where you put DCF in parens, can I suggest that we move it before the word child?
Absolutely.
A question on the next paragraph. It is required that people put in their current employer's contact information, is that correct? As well as their past employers?
Yes.
Yes, it reads current, and you're talking after number 1, Ms. Petrowski?
Yeah.
Yeah, it reads current and past employers' contact information.
Okay, does that mean that we are allowed to contact their current employer?
Yes, so that means, because they're applicants applying here,
Uh-huh.
sometimes they're working somewhere else. So when we do these checks, we have to send them to current employers and past
So
employers.
there's no option to say, no, don't contact my current employer,
Well,
I don't want them to know I'm looking for a new job.
We wouldn't do this till after they were made the offer. And
Okay.
then it has to do
Thank you.
with, if they're working with children in their current jobs, the DCF check would have to do with that.
I see.
So they would have
Okay.
to fill something out.
That makes a
Yeah,
lot of sense.
Exactly.
Thank you. The paragraph where we've added updated in 2019. So a little bit of a concern that we are going to have to update this when we update the other policy and make sure that we're in sync. Is there a reason we have added updated in 2019? Is there something
Take it out.
that you thought it was important for?
Yeah, we can remove that.
Okay. And the next paragraph, I see that within 30 days after they're hired, we don't do a criminal check before someone is hired?
Yes, we do. They, the statute is they have to be done within 30 days of when they're hired.
Okay,
Since we purchased the fingerprinting apparatus here in the district, they're always done before they step foot in here on their first day. Back
Okay.
in the day when the police department did it, however, they were using probably every single days of those 30 extra days to get into the police department, to get an appointment to be seen, to be fingerprinted.
Okay, so per policy, it has to be within 30 days after they're hired, but we, as
Our goal
practice.
is, yes, always better than that,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect. In the second of last paragraph, where we've added in a DCF child abuse neglect registry check, just a nit here, can we just be consistent with how we do that as far as caps with the first? I don't care which way it goes, just consistency. And then on the last paragraph on this page, the last piece of the sentence says, is exempt from the fingerprinting requirement, and I'm not clear where the fingerprinting requirement is in the prior wording. And maybe it's just because I don't understand the statute security check automatically means fingerprinting is included, but could we clarify that somewhere?
Sure.
I also note that in the the fifth paragraph also says district students employed by the school system are exempted from this requirement. So does that relate to the last paragraph? Is it redundant? It might not, but I'm just asking. I think the question is the state and national criminal checks. Does that include fingerprinting or?
Yeah,
So
that
maybe a
may-
definition,
yeah, that may be redundant, those two paragraphs. We'll have to look into that further.
Okay.
but maybe a definition of what is a state security check.
Or at least somewhere in the first paragraph, like after that first sentence, comma, through fingerprinting. Because the criminal record check is through fingerprinting. Then there's also a DCF check, and then there's also, what's the other one, the third one? Right, so it probably just needs to be clarified in the beginning.
Well, that clarifies it for me, but in here would be
Mhm.
good too. Thank you.
Definitely.
Any other questions or concerns or edits on this policy? Ms. Doyle?
So you're saying that district students do not need to do the background check, the fingerprinting? Do they have to do the DCF check or anything else? Or are they just hired?
I think they're exempt from all of them,
Okay,
I
so
believe.
once you determine that portion, the first portion about what is the fingerprinting requirement and what that encompasses, I think we can just write a simple sentence and strike, district students employed by the school system are exempt from this requirement, because then it's copied again in the last paragraph. So a student employed by the district is exempt from this policy, or whatever the requirement is once you learn what it is.
Can you give me an example of when we might hire a district student?
So, for like a lifeguard position,
Oh, okay.
for Ready to Learn, sometimes we have students who work in the summer, juniors and seniors. Those are two just off the top of my
Okay,
head.
thank you. That's good. And then why would we strike the sentence about school nurses?
So that's a good question, and as I dug into the background information around the policy, it may be due to the General Statute 2917A. So there's language in the guidelines that go with the model policy that talk about Connecticut General Statute, Section 10-221D, requires that an individual being hired for a position with a Board of Education submit to state and national criminal history record checks within 30 days from when they begin employment. So it almost seems like it's a redundant piece that it's breaking it out as school nurses, that they are working within the district. So they would
Are
go
school
through
nurses
that.
employed by, they're not employed by us?
Ours
they're
are through the
employed by
city,
city.
correct.
Okay, so we are, I understand that, but we are certain that nurses are getting,
Yes,
Yes.
in the past, they were fingerprinted twice.
okay.
And especially for
From
their
the
licensure.
city and from us, and which is
Okay.
really
Yeah.
redundant. And
All
then
right.
we believe,
Thank you.
yeah, that the statute took that out, so.
Anybody else have any questions? Mr. Koba?
The last paragraph?
Yes.
On page 1, I don't think you need that comma after student. I think it confuses it. It's a district student.
District
Employed
student.
by the district. I don't think that comma is, yeah,
Okay.
just a.
Any other questions, comments? Ms. Mahler, are you good? All right, so this policy will come back for second reading and potential adoption at the next business meeting.
Second policy before you this evening is policy 6145, and I will point out that there is a language change to the title of the policy, changing it from extra class to extracurricular activities. So you'll notice that in the title as well as the title that leads into the policy. In the first paragraph, we have added the definition around extracurricular and what that means. So we've added student groups, clubs, or organizations that don't directly relate to the curriculum. In bullet point number 1, at the end, we've added in lunch period and struck out after school, and also added in a definition of what non-instructional time means, being that it's time set aside either before or after classroom instruction ends. Going down to item number 4, replacing observation with purpose of supervision. Item 6, we've added directed by persons. We've added an S to person. Going on to page 2, adding numbers 8 and 9. Number 8 talking about the school retaining its authority for order and discipline. And number 9, extracurriculum related student groups that are not district sponsored receive the same treatment as those that are. And those are the suggested modifications for policy 6145.
Thank you. Questions? Ms. Petrosky?
In bullet number 1, the definition of non-instructional time means, I was a little confused with the word ends because we have before or after classroom instruction. So I was a little, can we just get rid of ends?
Yeah, we can take that out.
Okay. And then in bullet 5, the second sentence says, since the education of the student is the prime responsibility of the school. Would that make more sense to say primary?
Yeah.
Because we then use secondary later on in
Yep.
that sentence,
Sure.
just for verification. And then in bullet 9 on the last page, would that be all extracurricular?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have.
Anybody else with questions or comments? Ms. Doyle?
Just a general question about extracurricular activities. Do students have to get approval to have extracurricular groups or anything like that? Or is this just purely related to having a space within the school in a non-instructional period?
I think it's about the space within the school, but obviously, as you see, there's language in there about the building administrator being able to maintain authority and have access to supervision of those particular groups.
And then I'm guessing that there's other policies related to the development of extracurricular activities or groups or their assignment or creation, formation?
I would imagine, and I won't say for sure, but I would
Okay,
imagine that there's some guidance within student handbooks as well,
okay.
in terms of clubs and organizations.
All right, sounds good.
Ms. Preet?
Is in non-instructional time, where does community time and time during the middle and high schools where they can choose to go see a teacher or work on homework or, go in between classrooms, is that considered instructional or is that more free, open to go to the library or go see a teacher or just hang out in, is that considered instructional?
I would imagine that that's still instructional
Okay,
time.
got it. Okay, I just wanted to be sure. So these would be before and after period?
I think about before, after, lunch period.
Okay, got it.
Any other, is that it for you? Any other questions? Ms. Mahler, you have anything? Okay, so again, this policy will come back for second read and adoption at the next meeting.
The third policy in front of you tonight is policy 6161.1. Also a requested change to the title of this policy as well. Obviously, during the current school year, or now prior school year, we put before you a library of media policy We are requesting a strike of the textbooks, library materials, or other educational materials, and calling this evaluation of instructional materials. This is a pretty dated policy, dates back to 1995. So obviously there is a lot of changes to the model policy since that time. So we firmly believe that the title now reflects what the policy states. So we have struck through the old policy. I won't go through each of those, but I'll focus on what the suggested revisions are to the policy. First paragraph in the red basically talks about that we will select instructional resources in alignment with standards. Those standards are high quality and research-based materials. The instructional materials are in alignment with obviously our state and national standards, as well as any statutes and regulations from the Connecticut Board of Education, as well as the Department of Ed. Going on to page 2, the standards are one piece to the selection of instructional materials, but we also put a professional judgment of our staff as the folks who are the experts in evaluating instructional materials. So understanding that they are looking for acceptability and thinking about the criteria on which they're selecting those materials. And then the final paragraph talks about when examining those instructional materials, we want to make sure that they foster not only social-emotional development, but also a lot of the items around portrait of the graduate, vision of the learner, communication, critical thinking, cognitive development, and that the materials will be age and developmentally appropriate. And lastly, we've added in a reference to 6161, policy 6161, which is library materials.
Questions from board members? Ms. Preet?
Okay, so what was struck where namely it talks about failing to return or damaged, is that now, and then shall assess a student for the cost of replacing, is that now incorporated into library materials? So if that's damaged or not returned, what happens if we're taking it out of this one? Is it in another one?
We do have in policy 6161 specifically around library books.
Gotcha. And if they don't return them or they're damaged, we can assess a charge?
We would have that within our administrative regulation.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. It's like, where did it go? I'm fine. Okay.
In the second red paragraph, I just want to clarify, because when you were speaking, so it references compliance with Connecticut general statutes, regulations of the State Board of Education, and our board policies and regulations. You had mentioned the Department of Education, which it doesn't actually say that. It says Board of Education, so.
State Board of Education, yeah.
That's the way it should be,
Yep.
okay? Ms. Doyle?
Just a few things. Does evaluation of instructional materials the second time need to be in there? Because it's already the heading.
We have that. That's the same structure format for all of our policies.
Okay. Okay, I couldn't remember that, sorry. And then adding on the naming convention in the first paragraph, the Milford Board of Education, parentheses, board, needs to be added. And then that second paragraph, instructional materials shall be evaluated consistently and systematically in alignment with state and national standards. To me, consistently and systematically in alignment is redundant unless you're trying to say something differently, because I was playing with because I'm assuming you want a systematic and consistent practice of reviewing materials and evaluating them and ensuring that they're in alignment with state, with all of the standards as well as the other aspects.
Correct.
It's fine, don't worry about it.
Ms. Petrosky?
So that first red paragraph, that sentence is a little long for me. I was wondering if we could, and if it makes sense to, because I'm not sure this is what you're intending. If we said the Milford Board of Education Board recognizes that instructional resources will be in alignment with local, state, and national standards, period. They will be high-quality, research-based, and affirm the identities and experiences of our students. Does that Does that have the same intention?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm sorry, can you, one more time?
Sure.
Second paragraph?
First paragraph.
The Milford
First.
Board of Education recognizes that instructional resources will be in alignment with local, state, and national standards, period. They will be high-quality, research-based, and affirm the identities and experiences of our students. Thank you. And then on page 2, that last paragraph has a similar read for me. I know you're saying when examining instructional materials, can I try something and see if it works the same way and matches your intention? So selected instructional materials, educational activities, and resources will be suitable to foster social emotional development, communication, critical thinking, and cognitive development, period. They will be age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. If you don't want to use they, can we just be consistent saying instructional materials versus just materials?
Can I just read it back to you, make sure I have
Sure.
your suggested? Selected instructional materials, educational activities, and resources will be suitable to foster social emotional development, communication, critical thinking, and cognitive development. They will be age and developmentally appropriate.
Yeah. Does that meet the intention that you had?
Yeah, I think it reads the same way. It's just taking out some of the redundancies about materials, resources, and activities.
Okay.
I had found the end of that first sentence where it says, and resources, comma, resources are, so that was very clunky to me as well. So this reads a little bit smoother if it states the same thing. Ms. Muller?
One more quick one on paragraph 3, where everything that we're talking about in here is related to the evaluation of instructional materials. And in the very last sentence of paragraph 3, it says to evaluate instructional quality. I'm assuming these are the standards on which to evaluate the quality of instructional materials.
That is correct.
So can we add the word materials in there somewhere? So it's not referring to the quality of instruction, it's referring to the quality of materials that happen to be instructional.
Thanks.
So would that be to evaluate the quality of the instructional materials?
Correct, that's the way I have it worded. Criteria on which to evaluate the quality of instructional materials.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments, changes? All right, seeing none, this policy will come back.
And then the final one for board members to consider this evening is policy 6162, which is instructional resources for teachers. Starting in the first paragraph, removing audio-visual and adding digital, and even before that, removing evenly proportioned and wide in terms of the assortment of teaching tools. Going into bullet point 3, taking out intelligent judgments and replacing that with informed decisions. And number 4, taking out present opposing sides of controversial issues and mirror some of the language in our other policies around controversial issues, so there is consistency amongst the policies. And number 6, removing depicting in an accurate and unbiased way cultural diversity, and changing that to say appropriately emphasizing cultural heritage, critical thinking, and responsibilities of living in a pluralistic society. Going into the next paragraph, after superintendent, adding or his or her designees, and also adding in Milford Board of Education with the board in parentheses. And then adding in at the end the responsibility of professional staff to select instructional materials and resources, and adding in high quality instruction and educational goals of the district.
Questions? Ms. Doyle?
simple, in the first paragraph, all Milford Public Schools, parentheses, district capitalized, and then fix all the words of district and capitalize them throughout the rest of the policy.
Ms. Irby?
The question about in the paragraph after number 6, the last sentence, anyone may inspect any textbook or instructional material. Is anyone really anyone, or is anyone the aforementioned listed individuals?
It's anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone?
No, we've had that asked of us, and sometimes you have to get some legal counsel on. We want to see every single piece of paper that a teacher hands out for the entire year, and before it, for inspection, prior to use. So there are some limitations to that. So within reason, but a parent, a community member, you have the right to say, I want to review the textbook that you're using with my child this year.
Other questions? Ms. Petrowski?
I had one question on bullet point 5. Be representative of the many religious, ethnic, and cultural groups and other contributions to our American heritage. Was that meant to be contributors, do you think, or contributions overall? Because we're talking about groups.
We could do a double check on that.
Okay.
Other questions, comments? Okay, seeing none, that concludes our policy work.
Thank you.
And so now we're going to move to proposed final budget transfers. This is part 2 of 2. If you recall, last month we had a couple transfers, so turn these over to them.
Thank you, Dr. Catano, Ms. Glennon, members of the board. So in your package, you will find the 23-24 proposed final budget transfer request. So as previously been reported to the board, we had projected significant deficits in certain accounts, mainly our special ed transportation and tuition accounts. Throughout the year, we have taken prudent measures to find cost-saving ways to make sure that we will end the year with a balanced budget. And at last month's meeting, as Dr. Catano mentioned, the board approved the majority of these transfers. So it is now necessary to make the final transfers in order to ensure that we have a balanced budget for this fiscal year. So this attached document here will represent these final transfers for the 2023-2024 school year. On this next page, you will see that there are 4 accounts that we are transferring from, and there are 4 accounts that we are transferring to. This first account that we are transferring from, certified teacher salaries, account 1111, in the amount of $118,552.39. These savings are attributed to unfilled positions and turnover savings for unpaid leaves. Account 1130, our severance account, we will be transferring in the amount of $134,693.07. These savings are attributed to less teacher retirements than normally budgeted. In our 2004 account, which represents our FICA taxes, these savings are attributed to savings in the salary accounts, and you will also notice that the FICA taxes will have a direct impact from the certified teacher salaries account. So the savings in the certified teacher salaries will result in savings in FICA taxes. And that amount is $76,510.42. And then finally, we have in the professional development account, account 8111, we will be transferring $59,854.91. And that was due to the budget freeze that we had anticipated, that we had implemented throughout the year in order to ensure that we ended with a balanced budget. That total amount is $389,610.79 that we will be transferring from, and the following 4 accounts will be the accounts that we are transferring this amount to. The first one is our grounds project, account 4305, and we will be transferring in the amount of $151,466.09. and that will be used to perform various grounds projects. We will also be using money in the custodial supplies account 4308, for $22,220.80. And this will be used to purchase menstrual products, dispensers, and supplies. As the board may remember, that this is something that needs to be implemented by the start of next school year. We will also be transferring $89,595 into our transportation, our homeless account, or what's the regular ed account, but this is specifically for our homeless transportation, and that's account 5100. And then finally, we will be transferring $126,328.90 into account 7310, which is our equipment account. And there are various items in there that we'll be utilizing for this equipment account, such as security cameras, firewall, 3D printers for our middle school students, and also music supplies, instruments, and a pottery wheel. This time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding these transfers.
Questions from board members? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. I'm trying to remember, were the musical instruments and supplies and the pottery wheels the ones that were cut from this budget, or were they cut from last year's budget? Can't remember which line they were, which.
Yes, I think it's a combination of both. Yeah, the specific ones from each one, I could, I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head, but I know it's a combination of both of those.
The pottery wheels are putting up
Jumping
flags,
out?
that's why.
Okay.
So pottery wheels, we talked about, we needed more than we budgeted for. And the ones that, there were significantly fewer at law than foreign, and then the ones at foreign don't all work. So it's a semi-hot mess in that area. So we thought, here's an opportunity for us to buy an additional one for law.
Yep.
So I think you'll be hearing about pottery wheels for a few years. Okay.
Sounds
Just
good.
because we're trying to improve the program and they're expensive and we want to be responsible in doing that, so.
And then, I think one of the other things is we had cut down the number of security cameras that were being replaced.
Always.
And so they were being replaced and we had tried to extend their cycle. Does this help bring us a little bit, kind of a marginally better?
Yes, I think security cameras are always one of those things, when we're talking about technology, as Mr. Giancola always mentions, the second you purchase something, it's already outdated. So I think that this does help us move closer to that target. And I think that that's something that we need to continually make sure that we are attacking, because you don't want to fall behind in an area like that. But what was really important to us in this equipment account was really two things that the categories kind of fell into two areas, right? The safety and security aspect, and also items that are going to be directly in the hands of students, right? Which I think was really kind of our guiding mission of what was important there.
I think those are good choices because I know from years past, I remember that a lot of those more regular ed costs got cut away and stripped as we had to balance some of our special education costs. So I think it's good that we can put money there.
Musical instruments go into that pot also. There's always a need to refresh or add, like we've talked about, hard to fund or larger instruments. So there will always be musical instruments list, always be like arts equipment list, security cameras, technology. There's something, each department head probably has a list in their top drawer of things that they would like to order if there's the case provides, so.
Other questions? Ms. Mahler?
And just a quick one, building off of Ms. Doyle's question, the musical instruments and the pottery wheel jumping out to you were the same thing as the cameras and the firewall jumping out to me. So thank you for covering that as well. Specifically to the firewall question, I know that was part of the budget this year for, without going into too many details, because I apologize, I can't remember what was executive session and what was public, but there was a layering that was going on and that was getting budgeted for and getting included in the upcoming year versus last year. Including the firewall in part of the category for the transfer here, does that fulfill what was attempted to be done and not done last year? Or does this put us ahead towards what was intended for next year?
This puts us ahead for what we were intending, because we want redundancy, so we will still,
Right.
so it just, so I don't have to ask for it this year.
Wonderful. All right, great, thank you. That's kind of what I was assuming, but I appreciate that.
Ms. Mahler, to be clear, 2 firewalls came to me, and through the superintendent budget review process, we reduced it by 1, and I think that's what you're also thinking about, that we wanted 2, but we proposed 1.
So is this that one, or is this the other one?
This is the additional one.
This is the additional one, sorry.
Okay, great.
So in the
So the one we
end, there'll
voted
be
for
2.
still will exist in the future. This is just that, yay, now we get to layer.
Yeah, yeah. This makes 2 for purchasing. Yes.
Love it, thank you.
Just to clarify to confirm my thinking, I should say. So I went, thinking back to last month, everything that we transferred last month related to special ed costs that were, mandated special ed costs. And we had a budget freeze, which allowed us to accumulate funds to cover these transfers. So in looking at these transfers, there's some more discretionary spending on them. If you take out the transportation for regular ed homeless, which is mandated, we have to do that. Out of our whole budget, my thinking is that we had about $300,000 of discretionary surplus, I'll call it that, which I think is pretty good for budgeting of a budget this large. Is my thinking correct? That
Very
Yes.
good, yeah.
It's very good, yeah.
Considering we were faced with unexpected costs.
right? Correct. Yeah. So I think that we did pretty well then with our forecasting and our budget projections and the work that you did to hold the line on cost to make sure that we were able to end our year with a balanced budget, and we have still a little bit left that we can do some other things with. So kudos. Anybody else? Okay, Ms. Petrowski, do you have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves the administration's recommended 2023-2024 budget transfers in the amount of $389,610.79 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Fermender has seconded. Is there any further discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Megan Doyle,
Yes.
Scott Furmender,
Yes.
Tracy Irby,
Yes.
Tom Koba,
Yes.
Lauren Maller,
Yes.
Una Petrowski,
Yes.
Christina Preet,
Yes.
Mike Smith,
Yes.
Cindy Wolf Boynton, absent, Susan Glennon.
Yes.
Motion passes not unanimously.
Motion passes unanimously. Right. Thank you.
Ms. Glennon, I'm going to turn over the next 2 items to Mr. Brennan. We will go from the final quarterly budget report to the disbursement report.
Dr. Kataja, Ms. Glennon, members of the board, thank you again. So in your package, you will find the quarterly expenditure summary report for the dates of April 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2024. This report represents our 4th and final report for the 23-24 year. You will notice and you will see that these amounts in the available balance account relate directly to the accounts that we just approved in terms of the transfers. So, for instance, transfers to one accounts are ones that had deficits, and you will also notice ones that are surpluses are the ones that had our available balances. So if you look directly at the transfer report, you had 4 items in the transfer to and 4 items in the transfer from. Those items line up directly to our available balance items inside this account, this report here. So for instance, buildings and grounds projects, you will see as a deficit of negative $151,466.09. And on your previous report, that was in the transfer to item, and so forth. That's the way those would match up directly with this. I'm happy to report that at this time, we have ended the 23-24 budget in a balanced budget, and we have completed that successfully.
Bravo.
Happy to answer any questions we have at this time.
First one under your belt. Mr.
Yes.
Brennan.
Yes, congratulations, Mr. Brennan.
Thank
I
you.
just a point of clarification, this is the report for April 1st through June 30th, but the report, it says at the top, March 1st. So
Yes, it definitely is the report for
it
that.
should be April.
It should be April,
Okay.
yes.
Do we have any questions on this final quarterly budget report? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Mr. Brennan, again. Good job.
And then, in your package, you will also find the list of all the cash disbursements for $1,500 for the month of June. At this time, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Anybody have any questions on these disbursements? Ms. Petrosky?
I have one question on the second page, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th item down. Could you just tell me what RTU stands for? I know I should know this.
It's a rooftop unit?
Oh, I see.
Thank you.
Yes.
It's like, gosh, I know I should know this. Thank you, that's all I had.
Any other questions? Mr. Fermender?
Yes, I just had one question. Over this quarter, not just the month of June, but for payments were made probably in June for April, May, and June. For special education to Yale University, what were the special education services being provided by Yale?
Can you tell us what page, Mr. Fermender?
Pages 21 and 22, account 5601. The bottom of 21, and there's 2 items on 22.
So that's for an out-of-district school, Cedarhurst.
I'm sorry,
It's for an out-of-district school, Cedarhurst.
Cedarhurst? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. On page 20, about a third from the bottom, the Beaverbrook fuel cell electricity, is that the cooperation or is that something else? It's to the city of Milford.
Yes. So that's the energy that we receive from the wastewater treatment. So it helps generate the energy for us, and that surplus energy goes to Cornhusk.
That's right. Okay. I'm ringing a bell but couldn't remember that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to
And we'll
town
move
manager.
the next item over to Ms. Kapazna, and she will provide you with a monthly report.
Thank you. So in my monthly report, you see the listing of job postings, personnel recommendations, retirements, resignations, terminations, and stipend appointments. This month, I did want to touch on, as Mr. Brennan said, we ended the year and continue at 7 retirements, and I'm kind of shocked, but that could mean next year we'll have a lot more. We have hired, some good news, 18 new teachers so far, including school counselors, a social worker, a speech and language pathologist. And right now, we are looking for just, and I hate to, I'll knock on wood, just 5 teachers that we're in the hunt for. So I think it'll be a lot smaller. This year's Milford Teacher Academy will be a lot smaller than last year. But that's good news. And also, I wanted to mention that on the 17th of July, we are hosting a job fair specifically for paraprofessionals. That's going to be at Jonathan Law from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the senior CAF. So while we've targeted paras, which I believe we need 9 paras currently, we decided today to expand that to invite Eileen Faustich in for her food service employees that she's on the hunt for as well. She needs about 7 to 9 new employees there. And then we need 8 lunch aides, so we're also going to open it up to lunch aid candidates. And, the more the merrier, so stop on down. To anyone who's watching on
July,
TV
did you
here.
say July 17th?
July 17th, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m., the senior CAF at Jonathan Law. So right when you come in the first driveway, right on the left.
If you know anybody looking for a job.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Ms. Kapazna on her report? Yes, Ms. Preet.
On personnel recommendations and then retirements, resignations, terminations, can you explain ESY and then the Meadowside chunk? You know, there's a bunch on both pages on the Meadowside, and what is ESY?
Okay, that's funny, because I was gonna mention that in case people didn't know. So ESY is Extended School Year, and that's a program we run for special education students. And it takes a lot of employees to make that up. Many of them are our existing employees, teachers, paras, et cetera, but we do have to hire people from the outside as well. And the ESY program is run at Meadowside, correct?
It's at Meadowside and West Shore.
Meadowside and West Shore.
Okay. And then with the effective date on that is 8/11/23, retirements, resignations, terminations. So a resignation on 8/11/23, there's a few of them, right?
Oh, okay, so those would be ESY staff members that decided not to return.
Okay.
And we realized that we didn't exit them out of the system. You know, a couple times a year, we do some cleanup in our system.
Okay.
We try to make sure.
Got
And
it.
if they had come back, they wouldn't have showed, obviously, on this report.
Okay, got it. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Oh, you're welcome.
Other questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Kapazna.
Thank you.
That concludes the superintendent's report, Ms. Glennon.
Thank you, Dr. Kataya. All right, moving on to, we have some, we had new business on here. We don't need to renumber anything because we have new business. Let's do first the HVAC grant motions, and then we'll do the consent agenda.
Make a motion that the Milford Board of Education accepts the HVAC improvements project at Joseph A. Foreign High School, state project number 084-001, HVACR, as 100% complete.
Second that.
Mr. Fermender has seconded. Do we have any questions? I might have jumped the gun and not given you an opportunity to explain this.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to explain it very quickly for you. As the board may remember, back on November 13th of 2023, the board approved the educational specifications for these two HVAC projects, one at the academy and one at Foreign High School. So the state has opened up the possibility to apply for an indoor air quality HVAC grant. And one of the things that they have in there inside that legislation is the ability to apply for projects that have already been completed. So you can apply retroactively. So what we had done was we took advantage of that and we went back and we applied for money for projects that were already completed. And I have some numbers for you. So at Foreign High School, there was a project that was that cost $788,938.70. And based on our 37.86% reimbursement rate, we were able to recoup $298,692.19. For the Academy project, that project cost $159,458.41. And once again, the same reimbursement rate of 37.86%, we were able to recoup $60,371.95. That money, both of those two sums of money, will go back to the city, as these were both city projects. So that money does not come directly back to the Board of Education side, it will go to the city. But it was something that we thought was important, if there was money out there that we could apply for, to take advantage of that, and we were able to secure that money. So this here in front of you, this motion, is an action that's necessary for us to complete the requirements on the website to close out the project and apply, we've already applied, but close out that project and receive that funding.
Thank you. All right, so we have a motion on the floor and a second for item A. Is there any further discussion? Yes.
Real quick, what's the total of the reimbursement we're getting, combining those two projects? You're better at arithmetic than I am.
Yes, I didn't sum them together, but looking at it, it would be 358,000. It's close to about 359,000. I could total those up for you really quickly.
That's okay.
So $359,064.14.
Thank you.
Any other
Very
questions?
close estimate.
All right, so this is on item A, all in favor, roll call vote, I'm sorry.
Megan Doyle,
Yes.
Scott Furmender,
Yes.
Tracy Irby,
Yes.
Tom Koba,
Yes.
Lauren Maller,
Yes.
Una Petrowski,
Yes.
Christina Preet,
Yes.
Mike Smith,
Yes.
Cindy Wolf Boynton is absent, and Susan Glennon.
Yes,
Motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Item B, Ms. Petrowski.
Make a motion that the Milford Board of Education accepts the HVAC improvements project at the Academy, State Project Number 084-002, HVACR, as 100% complete.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fermender. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Megan Doyle,
Yes.
Scott Furmender,
Yes.
Tracy Irby,
Yes.
Tom Koba,
Yes.
Lauren Maller,
Yes.
Una Petrowski,
Yes.
Christina Preet,
Yes.
Mike Smith,
Yes.
Cindy Wolf Boynton is absent, and Susan Glennon.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. So item C under new business would be consideration of minutes, Ms. Petrowski, one at a time.
So on the meeting minutes for June 10th, 2024, proposed changes would be on page...
So I move.
Oh, I'm sorry. I move that the Milford Board of Education approves the June 10th, 2024 business meeting minutes as amended with the following amendments. Is that correct?
Following changes.
Following changes. Page number 1, remove Una Petrowski from board members present the second time. On page number 2, the board policies for a second reading. On the board policy 5145.56, that should be 5145.53. And then on the adjournment, item 6, adjournment to executive session, at the end of the first sentence, we should add inviting Dr. Anakutaya to join.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fermender. Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Megan Doyle,
Yes.
Scott Furmender,
Yes.
Tracy Irby,
Yes.
Tom Koba,
Yes.
Lauren Maller,
Yes.
Una Petrowski,
Yes.
Christina Preet,
Yes.
Mike Smith,
Yes.
Cindy Wolf Boynton is absent, Susan Glennon.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Make a motion that the Milford Board of Education approves the June 24, 2024 special meeting minutes with the following change. On page 1, remove Una Petrowski, second entry.
Is there a second?
Second, sorry.
That's okay. Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Megan Doyle,
Yes.
Scott Furmender,
Yes.
Tracy Irby,
Yes.
Tom Koba,
Yes.
Lauren Maller,
Yes.
Una Petrowski,
Yes.
Christina Preet,
Yes.
Mike Smith,
Yes.
Cindy Wolf Boynton is absent, Susan Glennon.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Okay, we move on to board comment. Any board comment this evening? Ms. Doyle?
Thank you. We didn't do liaison reports, so I wanted to, on the Permanent Schools Committee, we are looking forward to Pumpkin Delight wrapping up and having a nice ceremony and opening and welcoming the students back in the fall. And then we are working on the process of going out to bid and all of the necessary steps for the law and forward renovations and additions that will commence, Mr. Brennan, in the spring of 2024?
Yes, that's the goal, to start in the spring of
2025, which will, the childcare, what we talked about, expansion at law, and then automotive and kitchen and culinary and other aspects, which I think will be really great additions.
Thank you. Any other board comment or liaison reports? I did forget that, I'm sorry.
Can I make a quick mention about that? That the culinary one is in a future project. This one will not include the culinary project that we
Okay.
have as a possibility in the future.
That's, okay, so just auto and childcare.
Tech ed.
Tech ed,
Tech
right,
ed,
okay.
childcare spaces.
All right, thank you.
It runs together.
All right, I see no other board comment. Okay, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Are there any objections to adjourning at 9 PM?
No.
Seeing none, we're adjourned at 9 PM. So everybody have a great